Now we have a question on debentures and credit markets. Let's look at the question. Raising funds through debentures does not dilute ownership control in a company. Now what is debenture? Debenture is a type of bond that is unsecured. There is no underlying asset behind it. So people will purchase debentures in a way of lending money to a company purely on the basis of the credibility of that company. The debentures will not have any underlying asset, so if the company does not repay, there are limitations for the investor to get it back. So debentures are basically bonds issued by a company to borrow money, but the difference from a bond is that the debentures are unsecured. And because they are borrowing and it's not an equity or it's not ownership related transformation, debentures, by selling debentures, there is no dilution in ownership. The ownership changes only when the shares are issued, equity shares are issued. So debentures is only a method of borrowing money from the market by a company. It does not dilute the ownership. On the other hand, if the company is selling shares, if the company is selling equity shares and then getting money from the market, that will dilute ownership because now new owners will be there for the company. Debenture is only a method of borrowing money. There is no change in ownership of a company. That's correct. Investors primarily rely on companies' creditworthiness to determine the confidence of unsecured debentures. Yes, because debentures are unsecured, because there is no underlying asset, when a company comes up with a debenture, the market will respond positively only when there is creditworthiness for the company. So that is also correct. Preference for debentures over equity is a key feature in a tight credit market. Tight credit market means that the market is not able to come up with resources to lend. So credit market means loan market. It can be banks, it can be investors. So when there is a limit to how much money can a bank lend, when there is a limit to how much money investors have to lend to companies, that is what is called as a tight credit system. So when there is tightening, you as an investor will be very much careful about where you are giving this money to, whom you are giving this money to, and what kind of product are you buying. So you'll be very careful. Imagine you have very limited resources. You'll be very careful with your spending. So in that instance, will you either go for a debenture or will you either go for a equity? When it comes to debentures, you may get higher interest rate in return, but you get no ownership. If the company fails to repay, then it can be problematic. But when it comes to equity, you will get dividend based on the company's performance, but you will also get ownership. It can be an asset for you. So therefore, in a tight credit market, wouldn't you prefer something more stable compared to debenture, which can give you high returns, but there is also a lot of risk involved. So in a tight credit market, you will try to minimize risk. So between debentures and equity, the less risk is for equity. So therefore, the preference will not be for debentures, preference will be for equity. So therefore, the third statement is incorrect. Only 1 and 2 are correct. The answer therefore will be A. So debt funding, no share issuance when it comes to debenture. It's only a debt funding. Debt funding means it's borrowing. That's it. So because the debentures are unsecured, the credit risk is actually high, and because the higher the risk, there will be higher interest rate also. However, in a tight credit system, the investors and the banks will try to reduce the risk, and therefore they will be giving more preference to equity than debentures. Thank you.